On the evening of January 29, 2025, a devastating aviation disaster occurred when American Eagle Flight 5342 collided mid-air with a U.S. Army UH-60L Black Hawk helicopter over the Potomac River near Washington, D.C. The tragic accident claimed the lives of all 67 people on board both aircraft, 64 passengers and 4 crew members on the passenger jet, along with 3 military personnel in the helicopter. This incident stands among the most catastrophic air disasters of the past 25 years. But the real question is, despite advanced technology and strict aviation regulations, how did a passenger jet and a military helicopter end up at the same altitude, resulting in a deadly collision? Was there a larger conspiracy behind this, or was it simply a tragic mistake that cost 67 lives? Let's analyze the details in this video. The aircraft involved was a Bombardier CRJ-701ER, part of the Bombardier CRJ-700 series. This highly efficient regional jet is designed for short and medium-haul flights. It was manufactured in 2004 and operated by PSA Airlines under the American Eagle brand. 60 passengers and 4 crew members were on board. This aircraft was equipped with modern avionics and had successfully completed numerous flights in the past. Flight 5342 had departed from Wichita and was approaching Reagan National Airport at the time of the incident. It was under the command of Captain Jonathan Campos and First Officer Samuel Lilly, both highly experienced pilots who were following standard landing procedures. On the other hand, the UH-60L Black Hawk is a crucial asset for the U.S. Army, used for troop transport, aeromedical evacuation, and executive travel. This particular helicopter, operated by the 12th Aviation Battalion, was primarily assigned to transport high-ranking officials and military personnel within the National Capital Region. The crew on board included Captain Rebecca Lobach, an experienced pilot undergoing a night evaluation flight with over 450 flight hours, Chief Warrant Officer 2 Andrew Eves, Staff Sergeant Ryan O'Hara. These highly trained crew members specialized in precision maneuvers in complex airspace. On this fateful day, the helicopter was engaged in its annual training evaluation mission. As both aircraft approached the congested airspace over Washington, D.C., they found themselves on a collision course. But why is Washington's airspace so challenging to navigate? Let's first understand the complexity of this highly restricted and congested zone. The airspace over Washington, D.C., where approximately 45,000 flights operate daily, is one of the most challenging in the world. At Ronald Reagan National Airport, over 800 takeoffs and landings occur on a single runway, putting immense pressure on air traffic control. Reports indicate that, at the time of the incident, the tower was operating with fewer controllers than required. Despite multitasking, this shortage led to communication gaps. One major reason for the heavy air traffic in Washington, D.C. is its status as the political and administrative center of the United States. The city houses key institutions such as the White House, the United States Capitol, and the Supreme Court, attracting a constant flow of government officials, politicians, and diplomats who frequently travel by air. Additionally, 3 major airports, Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport, Washington Dulles International Airport, and Baltimore Washington International Thurgood Marshall Airport, serve the area, handling thousands of flights daily. These factors collectively make Washington, D.C.'s air traffic exceptionally busy. Pre-collision conditions: American Eagle Flight 5342 was on its final approach when it received clearance to land at Reagan National Airport. At the same time, a UH-60L Black Hawk helicopter was conducting a training evaluation mission. Both aircraft were entering Washington's congested airspace, where flight paths and altitude restrictions are strictly regulated. At that moment, the helicopter was flying at an altitude of 300 feet. However, according to FAA regulations, helicopters on this route were required to maintain an altitude of 200 feet or lower. Air traffic control advised the helicopter crew to pass behind the CRJ, but the helicopter failed to maintain the correct flight path and altitude. At approximately 8:47 p.m. Eastern Time, the two aircraft collided, triggering a massive explosion. Both aircraft subsequently crashed into the Potomac River. CCTV footage recorded from the Kennedy Center captured the tragic incident. As soon as the collision occurred, emergency response teams from Reagan National Airport and Naval District, Washington, were immediately alerted. The Washington, D.C. Fire and Emergency Medical Services Department received the first emergency call at 8:48 p.m. Eastern Time. First responders arrived at the crash site within minutes to begin rescue operations. This rescue mission faced numerous obstacles. The first major challenge was the extremely cold water of the Potomac River, which had a temperature of just 2 degrees Celsius. In such conditions, prolonged exposure to water was life-threatening, requiring divers to proceed with extreme caution. The second challenge was the presence of two separate wreckage sites, one where the major debris of the CRJ 701ER was found, and another where the wreckage of the UH-60L Black Hawk was located. Emergency teams deployed specialized Navy barges, underwater drones, and infrared-equipped helicopters to scan the riverbed for survivors and victims. However, darkness and submerged debris further complicated the operation. According to some reports, a few individuals were alive for a short period after falling into the water but succumbed to hypothermia due to extreme cold exposure. More than 300 rescue personnel participated in the mission, including members from the U.S. Coast Guard, Navy divers, D.C. Fire and EMS, and the National Park Service. The Navy also deployed specialized salvage ships and underwater drones to assist in recovering debris and bodies. Initial reports indicate that 27 bodies were recovered from the jet. Only one body was found from the helicopter, while search efforts continued for the remaining 2 missing crew members. Some bodies were found in a condition that reflected the intensity of the initial impact and explosion. Several witnesses near the Kennedy Center and Arlington Memorial Bridge reported seeing a bright flash and hearing a loud explosion immediately after the collision. While some praised the rescue teams for arriving at the crash site within just 11 minutes, others criticized the delay in deploying boats despite the freezing water conditions. Current investigations suggest that if some rescue boats had arrived earlier, a few lives might have been saved. However, it is important to recognize that coordinating an air crash response and a water rescue is an extremely complex and dangerous process that involves multiple agencies. Recovery operations are expected to continue for the next several days to retrieve all bodies and debris, allowing the investigation to proceed to the next phase. Following the incident, both American Airlines and military officials expressed deep sorrow and issued official statements. American Airlines CEO Robert Isom stated that the airline was deeply heartbroken and assured full cooperation in the ongoing investigation. Military spokespersons emphasized that the involved crew members were highly experienced and that their tragic deaths were the result of a misunderstanding. These statements were intended to provide some solace to the grieving families. The incident also sparked political debate. President Donald Trump expressed his condolences, stating, "May God bless their souls." He also praised the first responders for their swift actions. However, Trump controversially blamed the crash on the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, claiming that its diversity policies were causing staffing shortages in air traffic control. He argued that a single controller was handling 2 jobs, which he deemed unacceptable. Carl Blake, CEO of Paralyzed Veterans of America, criticized Trump's remarks, stating that they disregarded the service and sacrifices of disabled veterans. Additionally, Trump pointed out that the Black Hawk helicopter had allegedly violated altitude regulations, suggesting that its deviation from the required flight guidelines might have contributed to the crash. This wasn't just a crash. It was the unfinished journey of 67 lives. Every aviation disaster leaves behind lessons, and this incident has raised many critical questions. Was this merely human error? Or is there a deeper reason behind it? The investigation continues, but one thing is certain: those who were lost will never be forgotten. If you found this video insightful, leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more intriguing aviation stories.